and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's Postal Workers Town Hall meeting with the New Jersey Congressional Delegation. The issue tonight is prospects of postal privatization, concretely the response of postal workers and our congressional representatives. We're here to hear what they can do for us, and as importantly, what we're going to do for ourselves.
Last month, the Congress passed the Treasury Postal Appropriation Bill, and that supports the Postal Service. During the debate on this bill, there was an effort to change the way the Postal Service negotiates international rates for the global package link. While the effort failed, it demonstrated another attempt to change the way the Postal Service operates. So they're coming at us from all different directions, attached to many different bills in many different forms.
What's the target of the privatization? Is it the subcontracting, which is the form of privatization that's hitting us? That means that while we need the assistance to beat back the H.R. 22s and other congressional moves that push this company towards being the public assets of the American people to being transferred to private hands, that shift of wealth and with it the political power to make decisions in this society.
Unfortunately, H.R. 22 would privatize these new functions without giving workers adequate protection and without giving the Postal Service enough freedom to be truly competitive. There are 800,000 postal workers in this country. That's 1/3 of the civilian federal employee workforce. So we better pay attention to what goes on with 800,000 employees.
We've seen them make preparations to subcontract out our work. The contractual basis is laid, and our experience has been from the medical units to the postal police to the postal telephone centers to now the priority mail centers, the mail transport equipment centers that's represented by my union. We've seen them take them and sell them off, bit by bit, bit by bit.
Chairman McHugh says that this legislation is intended to enhance and improve postal services, quote unquote. To enhance and improve postal services. Doesn't sound too bad. Unfortunately, because this bill was written by folks from UPS and FedEx, they did not have the best interests of us in mind, the postal workers of America, and that is one reason it should be objected to and rejected immediately.
So we crying wolf when we see a process that is extended over the last 20-odd years, in fact, because in the 1980s, postal management sat down with the major mailers, the private sector of this mail industry, meaning that the research and development and the thinking and the leadership was being privatized. Not the interest of the American people, the non-corporate American people, not the interest of 700,000 current postal workers, not the interest of our youth, the next generation of postal workers who will be looking for decent blue-collar jobs. That's not what was driving. We weren't at the table. It was private industry and postal management who sat down and said, we're going to automate it, we're going to reduce the numbers of people who are working, and we're going to employ as much privatization as we can.
Postal workers, the Postal Service is the biggest employer in Hudson County. That's the biggest employer. And all of the money, the payroll, the money that we get gets pumped right back into the local economy. Whether it goes to your mortgage, your rents, you go to fix your car, you go to your gas stations, you go to the supermarkets, to the malls, all that money gets pumped right back into the economy. So you shut out postal jobs, you shut out, it's going to have a ripple effect on the whole economy.
The Postal Service is a significant part of the economic lifeline of our country. I couldn't send a letter to my daughter in school, or a fiancé couldn't send her fiancé who may be a soldier representing our country in some other part of the world without you. And companies could not, in fact, be able to communicate and deliver their products to customers and deliver their messages to clients without you. And you, therefore, are a major foundation to the economic lifeline of the country. We need to talk more about that. We need to remind the American public that it's the United States Postal Service, not some private postal service that in fact does that. You know, when I look at the Postal Service and I think about the 107 billion pieces of first-class mail you move, the 38 million change of addresses a year, the 2.7 billion pounds of mail and packages carried on commercial airline flights. You handle 41% of the world's mail volume. And if you were a private company, you'd be on the Fortune 500's top 10 list. Now,
and look how many single women with children we have here. They need these good-paying union jobs. To a lot of these single women, one of the big reasons they want this post office job is because it provides stability. You get a bid. Those are your hours, and that enables you to provide adequate child care without this round the clock, dropping the kid here, dropping the kid there. That's what a good union job provides.
And I think it addresses the question, is privatization a real danger? In January, our national president receives communication from Postal Service headquarters that says that the service has selected the following material handling companies to resign the National Bulk Mail Center, BMC system: Lockheed Martin Federal Systems, Inc., Northrop Grumman Corporation, Rapistan Damage Corporation, Siemens Electrocom. Same people who design those machines we work on. Same defense corporations that in the absence of war are looking for other public service stuff to gobble up. Sounds like you're asking the fox to design the hen house. Would suggest to me there's going to be a big hole in it for them to get a piece of the action. That's their words to us.
The Postal Service, as you know, has done well over the past 4 years financially, and the consensus is that this will be the 4th year in a row that the company turns over $1 billion surplus. As when the omnibus budget reconciliations have been passed, Congress has put a hit on the Postal Service for some $14 billion through 1998. No business can survive when literally thousands of lawyers stick their finger into the pie when you talk about the Postal Rate Commission, etc. No business can run when Congress treats the Postal Service like a cash cow, and every time the Postal Service does well, Congress turns around and sticks its hand in the coffers.
And we got a communication in March from the area vice president, Dave Solomon. Oh, we didn't get it, we acquired it. It was Dave Solomon to Robert Polina, the plant manager of BMC. Other capital projects can be identified and costed out, but will not be approved until we have a definitive view of the future role of the BMC network, which considers all projected impacts of expected customer mailing/transportation adjustments due to the cost and feature enhancements. It's a whole network. Does it sound like they're making strategic decisions to determine what the future of that network, that are all aging plants, is going to be? No more capital investments till they make strategic decisions.
We used to do the empty equipment. We don't do it no more. We used to, well, we used to do the priority mail. We don't do it no more. The handwriting's on the wall. Larry noted, quoted from that magazine article. They want to contract out parcel post mail. Now, where does that put most of us in this room? That puts us behind the 8 ball. Now, I know myself. I've been working here 22 years. 22 of the best years of my life. Now I'm a 44-year-old man. What am I going to do? I mean, if they get rid of these bulk senders, where am I going to work? I don't want to reshuffle the deck at this point in my life. I mean, the contract says they can move you to 90 or 100 miles away. I mean, come on. I mean, it's been happening. The sacks are gone. The priority mail is gone. When are we going to wake up?
In the Trade Journal, Traffic World, May 1998, entitled, USPS Stirs the Pot. And who is the star of this article? John Kelly, the same man who brought you priority mail. He jumped the gun and started an in-house priority mail service center right here in the Bronx. And they said, ho, 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 back up. We've got other things in the works. And so Kelly goes on to praise the performance of Emory, you know, who in 1997 got a $1.7 billion contract. And he said because it's a dedicated mail flow system and they have the technology to track the mail, and it's allegedly was first going to be cheaper, but before in fact they opened the things, they acknowledged that it was going to cost more for Emory to do the work. Why then, if it's going to cost more, are you so insistent on putting this into the private sector?
That's what this is all about. And a national attempt to undermine labor unions in America. You are part of a larger picture that you must understand. That's what the UPS strike was all about. That's what the CWA strike is all about. That's what the fight of privatization is all about. That is what part-timing America is all about. And if we don't stand together, we'll go down one by one. Unity, they fear. That's the only thing they fear.
But there's 700,000 craft workers, and you're over 80% unionized. And you've achieved, through the course of struggle over 20-some-odd years of having a contract and collective bargaining rights, a certain standard that in fact was drawn from the successes that were achieved by our sisters and brothers in this industry and others in the private sector. And that you now have a higher level of unionization, unfortunately, than they have in the private sector.
We will be faced with more Postal Service privatization issues when we return on September the 7th. Make no mistake about it. During this busy period of long days and extra long nights, you're going to see John McHugh, who's the chairman of the Postal Service Subcommittee, who wants to finish work on H.R. 22, the Postal Reform Bill. You can see it now, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. People get tired. The next thing you know, you're voting on something, and if you don't read it, you're dead in the water. No excuses, no turning back once you vote. You can't go up after it's all over an hour later and say, I want to change my vote. It's too late.
There's other things on our side that have to be addressed. Because the subcontracting form of privatization that we're confronting is legal. It's legal. Article 32 of the contract of the mail handlers, Article 32 of the contract of the American Postal Workers Union is a hole this big that you can march an army through. And it's an army of making, that's intention is to make us poorer and to make us weaker through subcontracting.
And I'm skeptical that instead of drafting postal reform, Chairman McHugh has drafted postal privatization. The bill has been around for at least 4 years. It has undergone several revisions to make it look a little better. It's removed, we've removed many objectionable parts and provisions affecting privatization. Unfortunately, it still contains provisions which threaten the existence of the Postal Service and our postal workers. And therefore, it should be condemned and voted against, and we must make sure it doesn't even come to the floor if it's at all possible.
These different support services got chipped away, we didn't think that that was an issue that was directly relevant to us, the production workers. But then they went to priority mail, which is one of the highest rate profit-making product that this company had. They're still going to get a piece of the action. The private company, Emory's going to get a piece of the action. Guess who's cut out of the loop?
Before we talk about privatizing the folks in this room, Let's see the record as it stands on privatizing in the state of New Jersey. What this governor has done is an embarrassment. And if you've ever had to go to the DMV, if you ever have to go to the motor vehicle office.
Let's tell you what John Kelly says after he sings the praises about Emory, you know, the ones that you had to clean up behind at Christmas time because they shut the gates and sent the mail back to the postal facilities to work. After he sings the praises of the performance and acknowledges that they blew Christmas, that's only the key period of the year for this company and industry.
Well, you go to a DMV office. You'll be there 7:30 in the morning, and lines are already around the building. I'm not talking about getting your car inspected. I'm thinking about getting a simple piece of paper done. It didn't work. It's not cost effective, and it's screwed up. And that's where we are in New Jersey right now.
He points out, Postal Post or Standard B is another product begging for a new image, make it look different, and a new focus, said Kelly. Kelly forecasts he can triple the volume of Postal Post within the next 5 years. Today, its market share hovers at 9% of the ground parcel volume. Quote, we expect to create a whole industry of consolidators looking to move ground parcels in bulk, he said. To do that, USPS is looking for more partnerships with private companies to deliver packages to its own mailing centers, and undoubtedly will stir up a whole new pot of controversy.
The Postal Service processes 600 million pieces of mail a day, moving more in a week than competitors move in 1 year. Not only has this bill been written with heavy input from outside private organizations, but if it is passed, it's going to have a tremendous impact on the quality of postal service in America.
The one big house got divided into processing and customer service. A facade that there'll be some place where there may be somebody who wears a USPS uniform, there may be a United States flag flying out front, but they take it over that window and send it to the back house operations. That if you're a processing distribution clerk or mail handler, you know what I'm talking about. That's sorting, keying, humping, loading, unloading. You know, you folks who work 24/7 and nobody knows what you do because they think that the Postal Service is only letter carriers and window clerks, which is to say nothing about that, but that's what folks think the Postal Service is. They don't think that those mail factories 2 or 3 miles from here is what enables those carriers to deliver that mail after that clerk receives it across a window.
At a time when we see such a surge in profits and economic growth, the Postal Service should be expanding new jobs and services, not contracting them.
But they've moved from support services to processing. We've seen them do it with priority mail, and we have circumstantial evidence that they're now considering proposals for parcel mail. So first-class mail will be last. But they've got a plan, and the question is, do we have a plan to protect and defend what we have? It is a very real danger. There's a real danger that parcel mail will be next on the chopping block, and who knows what happens after that.
Is that the American public will suffer because private companies are motivated by profit. They are not there to serve the needs of the American public. They couldn't care less about the needs of the American public. They'll sacrifice all service and delivery standards in the quest for the almighty dollar. And
the local unions in this area have joined, and we are developing a campaign to oppose postal privatization. That means getting our minds right to recognize that this is a real danger, and it means changing the political climate in this country, within our company and out in the street, as to whether government equals bad, public sector bad, private is good. It is good. It's good for those who own and control it, those who are going to scrape off the profit. We have a different view. We have a view that developing the public sector is a good thing. We think this is an asset of the American people and it should be defended and preserved. We think that more service, not less service, should be delivered to the people. We think that those assets owed accountability to the American people, not to the privatizers, not to the greedy, not to the corporations, that they should not have control over a fundamental utility instrument of communication for the whole society. And we think that we have a stake to stand and defend decent level jobs, not only for ourselves today, but for our youth who will be coming up tomorrow. Because everybody ain't going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a rocket science. Some of us are going to be grunts in the next future, and grunt should not mean poverty.
What makes the Postal Service so uniquely American, beyond its long history, is the fact that we serve everyone in this country. Whether you are rural, you live in rural America, suburban America, or urban America, it doesn't matter whether that's the route that makes the most money or the least money. We serve everybody in America, and we need to continue that tradition into the next century, which is only 2 short years away.
It's a political and economic assault because it will transfer social wealth to private hands. You are society, and that wealth should serve you and us. In every privatization scheme, they end up with high-tech, low-wage, non-union workers doing the work. In every privatization scheme, whether it is at the state, federal, or local level, you are the target of the privatization. Their managers ain't no smarter. In Emory, they got postal managers down there running those sisters and brothers who have got a pretty attractive job. But the management ain't willing to put it in the contract so that it's guaranteed. They are all at-will employees, and they're not our enemies. They're folks like you and me who need a job. And then when they say compete, we need to say solidarity. We need to build unity with the workers in Emory and any place else our jobs go and help them unionize those companies to defend our collective standards. That's got to be our strategy in this fight against privatization.
And the Postal Service, in a recent poll of the American people, was by and far rated the highest of all government-related agencies. Now, the fact is that all these achievements have been made possible by the hard work of all postal employees, particularly the craft employees throughout the country. And the Postal Service hierarchy, at least to some degree, has begun to publicly acknowledge that. But
we're not alone. It's not just the Postal Service. Across the world, what is collectively owned is under attack. Postal Service and communication services across the world are being privatized. But the sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico showed them a thing or two. Vaya. They said, no, you will not take our national patrimony. This telephone company, the sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico said, this telephone company supports every municipality with its profits. It supports the public television system with its profits. It feeds back into all of the education of the system with its profits. The profits of a government-owned industry feed back to serve the interests of the people. Because when it wasn't working, private industry didn't want it. But in the interest of making the island politically more appealable to reactionary forces in this country, those who advocate statehood said, we'll be just as weak as the other states are, and we'll give up this rich resource. And the people of Puerto Rico said, not without going over us. And they shut the country down. They set the country down. You don't fight for what you got, the thieves will take it. And you can't fight individually. Our congresspersons have a part to play in this because there are legislative assaults. And we thank our friends. We need allies. But the solution clearly is a political one. So we, the rank and file members of our unions, need to be raising as they're going into this contract negotiation. This thing that wasn't important for the last 20 years, Article 32, has become suddenly very important. And we need to move it forward on our collective bargaining agenda. But we can't just rely on our national leadership You and I are the foot soldiers of the struggle against privatization. And without, and I'm so proud to see y'all fill this hall, because some folks said we were going to have 20 people here. But as hot as it is, y'all came out. So I hope I think that's sending a very clear message that this issue is important to us and that we're willing to make sacrifice and struggle to defend.
Congress, therefore, recognized as far back as 1970 that the way to provide fundamental postal service to which the American public is entitled is through the utilization of career postal employees who will have serving the American public as their primary mission. Private companies and private employees cannot and do not have the same objectives or goals. At bottom, that is why privatization of the Postal Service has to be stopped. It simply is not acceptable to allow private companies who care only about the bottom line to decide what kind of mail service the American public will get.
It's because you're 700,000 strong, even if we are not as active as we should be, because you go from every small hamlet to every big city, and because you're 80% unionized and getting stronger every day, you are a danger to corporate America. They don't want to see no example of 700,000 workers in motion with a relatively decent standard of living. So they don't come with the all-out assault, let's sell the whole company off, because they're afraid of what your reaction will be. But let's show them that, in fact, we see what you're doing to us piecemeal. And we say, enough now, enough. The road is going to be long and hard, but it is inevitable that we must go that way because we have no choice. If we don't fight for what we have, it will be taken. If we don't go forward, we will be pushed back. Everybody, let's get on board and fight privatization of the Postal Service. Thank you.
And I'd like to go on record that you would go back and tell the congressman that privatization is number one for most of the voters, the postal employees, and to fight, not to turn his back on us. It's very important.